Now we have 3 presentations, each 20 minutes, and then we'll go back to panels. First presentation will actually be by Oak and myself, and I'll just switch over the slides. We'll talk about some evolutions of Olas. So Olas is the autonomous AI agent protocol we're both working on. We're both co-founders of Valerie. Valerie is a core contributor to Olas, and today we want to present you some of the updates we've been working on and are bringing to the protocol. So last time in Denver, we proposed adding a missing piece of the puzzle. What was this missing piece? Staking. So the protocol at the time had 2 mechanisms in place, staff rewards and bonding, but it didn't have a mechanism yet for incentivizing agent operation and coordinating agents in multi-agent system use cases, like we heard earlier on the panels. We proposed that white paper, and now we can give an update on where we are with deploying this. So it's basically almost done, rolling out. The contracts are done, the contracts are audited. Some parts of the update are deployed, but we're still waiting for a number of fixes from the audit for other parts of the contracts, the resulting re-audits, and then the deployment. So for those who are following Olas and Olas staking rollout, there's probably around 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks more until this will be fully live.
So one of the last, the first time we did this Agents Unleashed was in Denver, and we were very proud to announce that Olas agents at that point had done 10% of all of the safe transactions on Gnosis chain for all time. And a few months on, we are now very pleased to announce that that number is over doubled to 21% of all of the safe transactions ever on Gnosis chain. So, there you go. So this is, for those familiar with Olas, largely driven by the prediction agent economy, which we talk a lot about and we'll be happy to talk more about. But what we're even more excited about going forward is a new upgrade to the protocol called Olas Staking, which was also announced in Denver. And what Olas Staking does and says essentially is that we have this prediction agent economy, and now we can scale that into other economies, each with all of many agents themselves, each producing valuable output. Even with Olas Staking going live, one of the blockers that we have, or challenges that we have rather, is that even if we can get people to run agents seamlessly, it's not quite as seamless yet to build Olas agents. But builders in the ecosystem, we've been working with builders for many years now, 3 years, and we've come across multiple things which are challenges for them. So there's no shortage of supply of ideas for what would make for an interesting agent. I'm sure everybody in the room has an idea of what they would love an agent to do for them. But building one is a completely different story. You have to put down an architecture for that agent. You have to write a bunch of boilerplate code, and then actually filling in the gaps and putting together the business logic for it is another story. And so what builders want is essentially to go from an idea to having a fully fledged agent as soon as possible, with an architecture that is fully laid out, with boilerplate code which is generated for you, and for many of those details for the business logic of those agents to be put together on your behalf. So I'm going to hand back to David, who will give an exciting announcement.
Yeah, so how do you basically solve that, right? How do you get a person from an idea to an agent in the fastest time possible? If you solve that, then we can really have an explosion of agents, because then we can have everyone express what they want in an agent and have that agent do that on their behalf. So this is actually something at Valerie the Labs, which is a theme for us now for many months and will be for many years. But we've arrived at a very important point on that journey where we can reveal a new product which really significantly affects that journey for the builder. And so that product is what we call Propel Genie, the 10x autonomous AI agent developer. So what is it? Well, I'll walk you through it. So Genie has a bunch of features that address head-on the problems which we were outlining earlier. Firstly, and just realizing this is not aligned, so let's fix that. It automates a large part of the process of building the agent itself. So as Oak was outlining, the current means of building an agent involves these several steps, and they are so far not automated at all on the Olas stack, and also actually not outside. I mean, you can use occasionally maybe something like ChatGPT in the mix, but there's nothing which takes you from beginning to end in a very fast way. Also, as you're obviously building your agent, there's certain concepts and conventions which framework developers impose upon you, and which are good, right? Like these conventions and concepts are there for a reason, but also as a developer, you need to learn about them. And so historically, this is a disjoint experience. You as a developer first learn about these concepts, then you're exposed to them. It's inefficient. Further, we do have a high degree of modularity in the Olas stack, but again, that is not something which you can experience to the fullest whilst you're actually developing. You have to kind of go forth and back between looking at like various components you could be mixing and matching, and then actually going and developing. And just generally speaking, if you look at the stats for how much time does it take a developer to execute a well-spec'd idea to having that in production, like it's way too long, right? We want that ultimately to be less than a day. Today, it's many weeks. So we basically address these things with features in Genie. Now, before I demonstrate Genie, I want to basically kind of get involved into the details of how it actually does that. So there's Genie is an agent building agent, right? Now, that means that the end product it creates for the developer is an agent, an autonomous agent for the Olas ecosystem, but Genie itself is an agent, right? So it itself is actually not just one agent, it's one of those multi-agent systems we were talking about earlier. It's a collaborative multi-agent system. Inside Genie, multiple agents are working for the developer and with the developer to compose an entirely new agent. So we have this FSM generation agent. FSM is a technical term, finite state machine. It's how basically we organize, like the organizing principle in the Olas stack. So there's this agent which generates these FSMs. There's this code planner agent. So it generates the actual code for the, it plans the code for the specific subcomponents of the FSM, i.e. its states. Then there are the actual generating agents. So they take these plans provided by other agents to then execute that in actually written code. And then obviously you have in theory an agent, but you don't know whether it runs. So now you have this code evaluation agent, which takes the output from the other agents, tries to run it, and sees whether it actually works. And so Genie combines all of this under the hood, like it's productized. You just have it in the box. And if you then look at the developer workflow, it really fundamentally changes. Let's see if this pointer works. Yeah, it does. So here we have the user, the developer. Ultimately, they provide an idea. This is an idea about an agent that they express in natural language. They provide that as a prompt to Genie. And then Genie starts doing all these things I outlined. It will start generating a specification, which adheres to the architecture provided by the stack. So it'll translate that natural language into an actual specification. And then we use rules, rules-based AI, to basically translate that specification into the actual architecture and scaffolded code. And at that point, it then yields control back to the user. And from that point on, the user, i.e. the developer, is able to iteratively kind of iterate through the states of the FSM. So again, you can imagine this like a rail system, right? Like when you're defining an agent today, it's a mix of rules and learning space. So the rails define the rules upon which your agent travels. Maybe it's something like it'll engage with certain protocols. It will do certain things in a certain sequence. Those are these kind of states which are defined on the FSM. And the developer then, together with Genie, defines what happens inside of all those states. So obviously from the high-level idea, there will already be some pre-existing notion of what will happen in the states. But as the developer works with the Genie to refine the agent, it is able to provide further prompts to refine in each state what the agent is actually meant to be doing. And so at the end, you get your final agent code, right? Now, what does this ultimately do? It shifts a lot of the complexity that you have today when you're developing on the Olas stack into Genie, because you no longer have to think from the start, okay, I have this idea, but now I need to spend like days figuring out how I'm even like speccing that, right? And then like I need to take that spec and make sure it actually is a spec, because it'll fail 5 times, and then I managed to scaffold it. And now I've scaffolded it, but now I haven't, now I've got to do all these individual states. And again, I'm starting each state, I have to think, okay, what's it doing? And then I have to write that code and so on. Genie takes all that and does it for you. Does it create a perfect Olas agent today? No, but it creates it basically cuts down the development time from what we currently see as many, many weeks to around a week or so. So how does it work internally? We basically leverage, Genie you can think of as a pure AI agent. There's no crypto here, right? What it generates at the end of the day is an agent which can be deployed in a crypto context, but the agent itself is a purely based on traditional AI primitives. There's various prompt engineering, code generation, and evaluation techniques deployed. I'm not going to go through all the details here because it might be a bit overwhelming, but we're leveraging basically state-of-the-art literature productionized into the system to help this multi-agent system help you as a developer write code. So again, Genie is like your Genie, which magically takes you from this idea to an agent. So let's have a look at how this looks in practice. It's a recorded video, and all the steps are explained. I might occasionally pause. So let me just go back. So as I said before, the first step is always the user describes the agent in natural language. And optionally, it's up to the user. They can also provide some code examples which they would like to already be part of the specification. So we can see this here. The user spins up Genie, provides that as input. And now what happens is that the basically prompt gets translated into the specification, as I said earlier. So these finite states, state machines. For the developer, what appears is effectively a bunch of output here, as seen in the console with an interactive interface, as well as the files which they can inspect. At this point, the developer already has effectively a specification, and they can obviously peruse it. So we're skipping this step here. You know, as a developer, you'd look over it, you'd be like, okay, am I happy with this? If not, you can continue interacting with Genie. If you're happy, you go ahead and you say, okay, let me actually scaffold this. Again, previously the developer would have to go around, install a bunch of things, then get the correct spec, feed it to the program, run the program. Here you just press a button. It scaffolds it in the background. This is rules-based. And now we're already at the stage where basically the developer has an entire agent scaffolded. It has probably what would have previously taken them around 3 days to maybe a week or so, condensed into providing a prompt and interacting with Genie for 10 minutes or so. And now they're ready to basically refine each step of the agent. So again, let's think about what might be one of those steps. It might be the state in which you're actually reading, for instance, the position on a DEX, or actually writing your instructions into trading an asset or something like that. And so for this, again, Genie provides an interface. It has all these FSMs. You can then kind of select them as the developer and kind of basically provide further descriptions to enrich the code in those sections. So this is what's happening here. Developer basically in natural language describes what they want to happen in those states. And then in the background, all these other agents now get to work executing this, right? So they write a code plan, and then they write the code, and then the evaluator comes and says, oh, actually this code is failing. You need to try again. So this agent, this is now inside Genie, it's not the user, keeps going in a loop until it has actually come up with a meaningful output, and it will then present that again to the user. Here we're seeing it present the code plan, and then it cycles through the generation and the evaluation. You see it here generating the code files already, import random, this is where the code starts. And so this loop continues, right? It depends on the complexity on the agent, how long the developer will interact with Genie at this stage. But keep in mind, we're talking about something which would otherwise take many weeks. Like historically, you would generate this as a scaffold, and then you have your scaffold, and now you're writing code, right? And this is literally I mean, any developer in the room will know what this means. You're now going there, sitting, thinking about it, and so on. So here, you're already being presented with a highly refined, basically, state machine with its code filled mostly in. So we're still in the basically code planner, code generation, code evaluator stages. And ultimately, once you've kind of done that as a developer for all the FSMs, you have an agent. Now, what Genie will allow you to do is basically at this point in time, it will basically stop and say, well, do you want to save this code locally, basically, i.e. export it into your local tooling and then work from there. So that's what Genie is today. Now, couple of points I want to make. Obviously, this is not the agent you will get at this stage is not fully ready to just be deployed, right? So we're not saying that you can today go from idea to agent in the time of this video. This is not what we're saying. But if you compare this to the situation we had before, this process alone shown in the video would take many weeks. We are cutting this now down to effectively the duration of many minutes, where the developer already gets a fully structured agent system, and they can then spend the rest of the time refining the individual states, writing tests for them, and so on. Now, on closing, I want to say how you can access this. So we basically have an alpha site live right now. So you can go to valerie.xyz, And there you'll find the link to sign up. We'll also post this on Twitter, obviously X. We will basically permission access for now and work with the early developers to refine the product. Very excited about this, so please, if you are building Olas agents already, come talk to us, sign up for this. It's a unique opportunity to accelerate you in your journey. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of room for this to grow, and we will grow this. So I'm sure we'll be back on stage presenting Genie once more. But in the meantime, I just want to give you a couple of examples of what this enables. So many of you have ideas around agents. We already know, earlier today we heard about prediction market agents. We heard about agents in DeFi. You can create an agent which basically aims to generate research content, right? Maybe initially it's more on the side of retrieval, but already there's attempts to basically generate actual researchers who generate new novel content, which is a combination of both original knowledge and knowing the sources as well as utilizing models. Similarly, agent influencers, there's a great project in the Olas ecosystem, which is called CreatorBits. They're basically creating agents that individuals or communities can own that act as influencers, or you can build one of those multi-agent systems I mentioned before. In all of those cases, you can now utilize Genie to basically accelerate you. So what agent will you prompt? That's basically the question we'll leave you with. And again, our ultimate aim is to take you from an idea to agent ultimately in a day. We want anyone and everyone ultimately to just spin up the agent they want from just a prompt. And that's our first step on that road. So thanks very much.